Hello and welcome to Symbols and Cynicism, a podcast where we talk about all of the things that I love, some of the things that I hate, and this wacky adventure that we call life. My name is Bob, I'm your host, and happy Mother's Day. We'll be talking today about Star Wars women. We have something neat with Matt, and I am an alumni. Let's get started. Welcome back to today's program. Happy Mother's Day to all of you that are mothers. Mothers are such special people. We all know that. When you're a child, there is no way that you can appreciate what your mom does. It's just not possible, even as a teenager or a 20-something. You can't know. But if you have the privilege as an adult to be able to watch a mom every day, you start to realize their sacrifice, their love, their dedication. Then you start to think back and you realize that your mom did all of those same things. I did. I realized it one day, and someday Harrison will as well. He doesn't today understand it, but if he's a dad someday, then yes, he will understand. And yes, I know that today is not Mother's Day. It was yesterday if you're listening to the first day of this podcast, but sometimes the way the episodes work, it just doesn't happen. And since Mother's Day was a Sunday, that sort of makes today the official work week observance day, right? So it still counts.
No, it doesn't.
Shut up, Sid. Before we get started today, just a reminder to tell your friends about the program, share us on Facebook. More listeners are more fun. If you want to financially support us, you can do that with the support the show link at the bottom of the description. You can also find us on YouTube at Robert H. Sloan RHS Music, including old podcast episodes, shorts, Star Wars only episodes, including this week and last week. There's also some RHS music stuff on there, but you can ignore that if you want. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Symbols and Cynicism, a podcast, and also RHS is on Facebook at RHS Music. On with the show, Cathy is back with us 2 weeks in a row for her. We're going to discuss our favorite women in Star Wars. We have something neat with Matt today, more book homework with Dawn, and I am an alumni? No, you're not. Let's roll. Okay, welcome to our next segment here. It is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day. And our producer, my sister, and more importantly, mother, is here with us. Cathy, how you doing today? Happy Mother's Day.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
You have, of course, 2 kids, adult-ish kids, I guess. One is almost graduating with her second. She's going to be a lawyer soon. Graduation is right around the corner for her. Your son is in college now. So, I mean, they're sort of adults, but it's still motherhood, right? Motherhood never stops.
It is. Never stops.
So hopefully you have something wonderful. Hopefully you have nothing planned. Hopefully somebody has something planned for you on Mother's Day. And by the time we're listening to this, it will have already happened because technically Mother's Day was yesterday, even though podcast time. Anyway, today you're joining us. We are going to, in honor of Mother's Day, talk about women in Star Wars. We made a list and then we just keep kind of adding to it. It's an extensive list. Some we'll get into a little more than others, some not. It's alphabetically, sort of alphabetical, I guess. So this is not a best of, this is not a ranking. This is just a celebration of women that are warring in the stars. Some of them are moms, some of them are not. We didn't limit it to motherhood because a lot of these are Jedi. They weren't mothers ever. First thing I want to talk about, do you know about the Bechdel test?
I do. I am super curious about whether Star Wars passes this. I gotta believe that the original trilogy fails miserably, right? So this is a test about how much women talk, how much women are present in a piece of media. It could be, I guess, with a book, but also a movie or a series, those kind of things.
Well, you're sort of along the right lines. The Bechdel test is named after Alison Bechdel. She, in the mid 80s, was a cartoonist, and she sort of brought about this test to see whether, now we're talking about the mid 80s, whether visual media, mostly movies, passed what she referred to as, or what became known as, the Bechdel test. She had noticed that old movies, and again, we're talking old movies from 1985's perspective, not from 2026 perspective, but she noticed that even when women are in film, they're not independent characters on their own. So she came up with a three-part test to know if it passes the Bechdel test. Part one is, are there more than one main female character? That's number one. Number two is, if there are more than two, do the two talk on their own, have dialogue together? And then number three is, does a large portion of that dialogue not talk about men? She had noticed that in these old movies, there was only sometimes one character. If there were two female leads, then anytime they talked, they always talked about men. And so she came up with this rule, and the original trilogy, you called it, does not pass at all. Epic fail. Leia really is the only female in any of those movies, and so therefore she could not talk to another woman. And of course, they couldn't talk about, and a large portion of her dialogue is related to, the romance with Han and or the romance with Luke, etc., etc. So, original trilogy, epic fail. The prequels, of course, the original trilogy did happen before 1985 when the Bechdel test was established. So maybe it gets a pass on that, maybe not. Prequels, they sort of pass. You do have Padme as the main character. There is her handmaiden and all of her other helpers, and they do talk, and they don't talk about men. So yes, it passes, but it only passes because she has servants. Does that make sense? So it kind of gets it's a soft pass. The animated series, and we're going to lump all of the animated series together, yes, they pass. Pretty flying colors. There are plenty of women, and they do have discussions together. Most notably, in my opinion, is Rebels, where Hera and Sabine, that's a constant conversation throughout the Rebels series. The live action series, yes, sometimes no. Where do we need to go into all of those? Sometimes they do, and the sequel trilogy does pass the Bechdel test. So as we get further on into the Star Wars saga, they are doing better about the inclusion of women. Does that make you feel good?
It makes me feel good that we're making progress. And it is admittedly hard for sci-fi-ish kind of series tend to not lean towards women main characters some of the time, but also war movies, so sometimes there's more male characters than female, but I do like that we're making progress.
Yeah.
It's another reason that animated Star Wars is the best Star Wars.
Sure. Yeah. And that original trilogy, especially, although the entire history of Star Wars, we've chronicled it here. It's based on samurai movies, World War II movies, and Westerns. And none of those would have ever passed the Bechdel test or even made it to the starting line of the Bechdel test. But that doesn't make it okay that Star Wars didn't include women in a major role early on, but I'm glad that they are doing better. So let's get into this list. We're going semi-alphabetically, so we'll see. We're going to start with Ahsoka. She appears, obviously, we've talked about her, at Clone Wars, Rebels. She now has her own series. I guess that passes the Bechdel test if the name of the series is the female character, maybe. What do you think? Talk to us a little bit about Ahsoka and what you love.
Well, we have talked repeatedly on this podcast about how much we love Ahsoka. So as I was thinking about this, I don't even know how to sum her up. She is one of our favorites for a reason. In live action, she's great. Animated, she's great. Young Ahsoka in the animated is snarky and outspoken and challenges Anakin, and kind of, I think she makes Obi-Wan kind of scratch his head sometimes, like, what are we doing? And as an older character, particularly in the live action, we've talked about how complicated she is. She's training to be a Jedi, but she walks away from the Order. We talked last week in some of our favorite scenes about setting down her lightsabers that Anakin gave her and kind of turning away. She tells Maul, I am not a Jedi. She inevitably is looking for what's right in the world, even when the Jedi or the Jedi that she knows are not kind of passing for doing what's right. And that kind of complication, is great to see.
Yeah, I love watching her grow up. We got, we start off with her as a very young Padawan. She's unsure of herself. And then as we see her grow and grow away from Anakin, not only literally, but also in her beliefs, which leads to her, leaving the Jedi Order. And I love to see her live action. So excited for the second season of her series, because the first one was phenomenal. I just think the growing up,
Mhm.
I am disappointed, and I've mentioned it on this podcast, in the Clone Wars animated series. There is the unfortunate outfit that they put her in a lot of the time, with like the high boots, the mini skirt, and the tube top. And it just, I mean, first of all, she's like 14 years old early on or something. She's a teenager. So, like, come on, put some clothes on her. And then you'll watch one episode where they do, and it's like, thank you. And then 2 episodes later, boop, she's back. It's like, ah. So maybe unfortunate clothing choices for her. But I mean, I've said often, Ahsoka is my favorite Jedi, and I don't care that she told Vader she's not a Jedi, and I don't care that she left the Order. I am counting her as once a Jedi, always a Jedi, in my opinion. Let's move on and talk about Asajj Ventress, one of my favorites. What do you know?
Asajj Ventress is in the Clone Wars, and we see her in animated series more, I think, than do we even see her in live action?
There
I can't
is,
think
there's
of
no live action that I'm aware of.
maybe
Not yet.
okay. So we see her mostly in Clone Wars or maybe exclusively in the Clone Wars. She is a complicated bad guy. She's sometimes fighting alongside the Jedi. She is an assassin for Dooku, but she ends up fighting with Maul. She fights kind of also for whatever is right on her own terms or what benefits her. She has her own motivations. Notably, she catches Ahsoka, kind of captures her, and then helps her escape from capture. I think even in the same episode or maybe the next episode of that arc. I think though the thing I like her best in and gives kind of so much more background and rounds out her characters, there are these small little snippets on Disney Plus that are called the Tales of series, and they are Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Underworld. They're these little one, I think most of them are one episode of a specific character, kind of their flashback background story. And Asajj's is great. It really rounds out her background in a great way. And yeah.
I think Asajj is great. She is she's a Death Mirian Night Sister, and we'll talk about
Mhm.
the Night Sisters a little more. But she definitely works with Dooku, but she also gets Maul and Maul's brother Savage and hires them to join her to try to assassinate Dooku, which was thwarted. She also at times works with Hondo Onaka when, like, she works with whoever suits her the best.
Mhm.
Super awesome with the lightsabers. Oftentimes she's got the two lightsaber look, and just a great complex character. There is a great book that features her. It's called Dark Disciple, and this book was supposed to be an arc of the Clone Wars animated series. And when the series was canceled after season 6, the writers and the producers loved this story so much that they moved it into the book series and had it written as a book. So that's why you never see it, because the book was out and then they came back years later and did season 7. But it pairs Asajj with a Jedi who's an amazing Jedi. His name is mentioned a couple of times, but I don't think we ever see him in the series. Is Quinlan Voss, and Quinlan and Asajj pair up to once again try to assassinate Dooku. No spoilers, but it's a fantastic book set inside the timeline of the Clone Wars animated series. I love Asajj. She is fantastic, super powerful, and yeah, she's kind of Maul like in that she's not super deceptive necessarily. I mean, she just kind of tells you like it is. Our next character here is Aura Singh. Again, we're talking about the Clone Wars era. Aura Singh is in the Clone Wars quite often. I wouldn't say major character, but when she's in an episode, it is major. She is a bounty hunter. She oftentimes pairs with the likes of Bosk. The arc in season 2 that she is in most notably is the one where she is trying to help Boba Fett assassinate Mace Windu for Mace killing Jango Fett at the end of episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Mace kills Jango. Boba witnesses it, of course, that's in the movie. And now this is an arc where Boba is still a boy, is trying to get revenge. And Aura Singh, Bosk, and another that I can't remember, bounty hunter, are trying to get after Base, and she's kind of helping, sort of like a big sister to Boba, sort of, or mentor to Boba. And you don't really, I put this one on the list, and you're like, I don't remember her at all.
Yeah, I really needed you to remind me who she was. Once you said that she's the one of the ones that partners with Boba Fett, I know exactly which arc you're talking about, but she really is not kind of a main character in Clone Wars.
No, not main, but when she's in it, she's in it. That's the really exciting
Right.
thing about her.
Right.
Move on to
Yeah.
Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan Kryze. She is a Mandalorian. She is a warrior. She appears in the Rebels series animated style. And then she is also in the Mandalorian series, live action, played by Katie Sackhoff. And she is one of the Mandalorians that believes she is heir to the throne. She is a sister to Satine Kryze that we'll talk about later because it's alphabetical. And whereas Satine was a pacifist, Bo-Katan is all in with the helmets and the Beskar armor and the we need to take Mandalorian back as a warrior. She is also at times in possession of the dark saber that's in the Mando or Boba Fett series. It's one of those two. I mean, Boba Fett is really just Mandalorian season 2.5 before episode season 3 of the Mandalorian. So I get those two confused on which happens in which. But anyway, live action, she appears in Mandalorian to help Mando, but she's there for her own rights too, but kind of helping Mando, and then comes upon the Darksaber, and then by the end, well, spoiler alerts, I guess, but I mean that series is pretty old. She does have the Darksaber and kind of starts her rule of Mandalore. I love Bo-Katan because she's just a warrior. I mean, she is all in. She's got heart, but she loves Mandalore, and she believes in the old ways of Mandalore and wants to take Mandalore back for her people. I think she's a really cool character.
Yeah, with her we get more of that dark saber story arc that starts in season 2 of Mandalore, I think, when he comes across her and she's willing to help him get Grogu back to some Jedi or some, find somebody like him, and leads him to Ahsoka. But she tells him up front, like, I'm in it so that I can reclaim the dark saber and we can reestablish Mandalore. Like that's her whole motivation from the beginning, and her willingness to help him is part of getting him to help her. So yeah, she's an intense character. They have that tension at the beginning about whether or not you can take off your helmet, because he's old school, got to keep your helmet on, but she is not, and he kind of questions whether she's a real Mandalorian, and she has to kind of stand up for herself and her belief in that too. So it's a great part.
Yeah, and big long discussion that we won't have right now about the taking your helmet off and why he doesn't and
Yeah.
why she does and et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, yeah, when Bo-Katan shows up in an episode, things are about to get real. Speaking of things that are about to get real, when I saw this person appear in a show and it was Ming-Na Wen, I was like, this is my favorite moment ever. I didn't know she was going to be in the Mando show, and all of a sudden, boom, there she is, Ming Na Wen as Fennec Shand, one of your favorites.
Love, love Ming Na Wen. I'm all for any character. Loved her in Shield. Just I think she's great, and she's, I don't know if I'm allowed to say she's a bad, but you can cut that part out. She is just such a strong person, and we see her in Mandalorian first. We think she's dead after a minute on the screen or something. And then she comes back and she owes Boba Fett for saving her, so she has to be loyal to him, and they kind of end up loyal to Mandalorian. And the fight scenes are great, little reminiscent of her in Shield, that kind of strong intensity, and she brings that kind of persona to Fennec Shand, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean she's a pretty big part of that first episode that she's in of Mandalorian because she's being hunted by that young kid who wants to be a part of the bounty hunting guild, and
Oh yeah,
and he
she's off on the dune,
yeah,
and they
and
have to they see her. Oh, you're
yeah,
right.
Mando helps the kid, I can't think of the kid's name, but capture her, and then that's going to be like his ticket to the guild, but then that's when Boba Fett shows up in The Mandalorian, and then they go off. Yeah, and they think she's dead. And like really cool, like when Boba Fett saves her and has her modded, like her whole stomach area gets the
Mm-hmm.
the like electronic mechanical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool. And then so yeah, he saves her, and so she's now loyal to him. But I really love the point where she pays her debt to Boba Fett, and he says, I release you from your vow or whatever. And she stays. Like she is all in on him as like, hey, I'm on your side. This is what we're going to do. And also, from a character actress standpoint, she was a voice in Mulan in 1998. Go back further, she was in the Joy Luck Club in 1993. So, like, talk about a legend. She, not only in the Star Wars and in the Marvel universe, but just as a person, right? Ming Na Wen, classic.
Yeah.
Okay, you put this one on the list, so I'll let you talk about this is the frog. I don't know what the name of this person is, and I didn't look it up. But from the Mandalorian series, it's a couple episode arc. The Frog Lady, who is a mom, or I guess, well, by the end she is a mom, right?
Yeah.
The little thingies hatch.
Okay, we can gloss over this one pretty quickly, but man, she's just adorable. I love I love those two episodes. I love Grogu in those episodes trying to eat her eggs, which it's just he's just cute. And Frog Lady kind of does the mom thing of like protecting her little shell, her little hatchery thing. She has this little jar that is supposed to keep her eggs, at the right temperature and wet and all that, and it gets her into trouble. She tries to put them in a pond, and there's spiders everywhere. It's a whole threatening thing. Mando has to save her, and then she ends up having to babysit Grogu in the second episode of that story arc. And they he doesn't eat more eggs, and by the end he's like petting her little tadpole, I guess it is, hatchling thing. And so the whole thing is just kind of a cute mom moment, so I added her to the list. Thanks for letting me.
Yeah, yeah, she's definitely a cute mom moment. She does have the eggs, and then the eggs hatch at the end.
Hmm.
It is a little bit heartwarming. Our next mom is actually, or our next character is a mom eventually in the series. This is
Hmm.
Hera Syndulla, from originally and most notably probably the Rebels animated series. And in the Rebels animated series, she just seems like Space Mom, I think. Like she's got
Hmm.
this crew on her ship, and she's clearly the leader, right? She's the leader. There's a Jedi there that is sort of, we find out through the course of time that they are a love interest together. And then there are these kids, and they're not all kids. Like Ezra's kind of a kid. He's a teenager, especially when they find him, he's a kid. And Sabine is kind of a kid. She's a little older than Ezra, but not really. Then there's Zeb. Zeb is an adult, but he's kind of a very childlike adult that needs lots of tending and care for. And so she's kind of this space mom. While she's doing that and leader of the Ghost crew, she's also like the best pilot in the galaxy. Like she is amazing when she flies anything, right? And we see her throughout the series fly a lot of different things. Obviously, her main ship, which is the Ghost. She pilots the little ship that goes along there. Plus, throughout the series, she just jumps in something and flies it. So that's really, she's just a really strong, amazing character. We see a lot of heartbreak in season 4 when she loses Kanan. There's a little heartbreak early when Kanan loses his sight, and then he dies near the end of the series, and she has to go through that whole sequence. Flash forward to the Ahsoka series where she is in that, and she is now a literal mom. She has a real son. Her and Kanan have had a child, Jason, and so we get to see her be actual mom and slightly more mature leader because a lot of time has passed. And man, she goes up against Thrawn and does not back down. She stands toe to toe with Thrawn multiple times, even in the series where she gets captured and she just looks Thrawn in the eye and is like, I'm not having any of that. And she goes back, he's got her artwork for that's native to her home planet, and she just has none of it. She stands toe to toe with Thrawn, and I love that. I love that about her.
Yep, I totally agree.
All right.
You want me to say more?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I guess I said it all. Our next one here is Jyn Erso, who is from Rogue One. I love that movie. It's my second favorite Star Wars movie, and I love Jyn Erso. What about Jyn?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing she's in is Rogue One, right?
Yes.
We kind of just discover her. We see that beginning of her dad being captured or whatever. We don't know a ton about the family until later in the show, but we watch her grow into being this woman who she discovers, or she thinks that her dad is part of the First Order, and really discovers that he kind of left this loophole in the plan for the Death Star, that there is a way to get rid of the Death Star, that it has a weakness. And once that is discovered, she realizes that he was maybe even hopeful that the Death Star would fail through this, that somebody would find it. And so without her determination, she gives a rousing speech to the rebels. Mon Mothma is not convinced of her ability to pull this off, but then eventually supports her. She sacrifices her life in this one movie just to see her dad's kind of stuff fulfilled, his hopes fulfilled. And so it's a great character development all in one movie. Her determination, her work with Cassian. I mean, yeah, she's a main character in this movie.
Yeah, it is called The Empire because this is right before A New Hope. So anyway, but
Okay.
no, I agree. She is. I think it could be argued that she is the strongest character in Rogue One. I mean, she's raised basically by Saw Gerrera because her dad's off helping build the Death Star. Her mother's dead. Saw rescues her because they're old family friends. And so Saw kind of raises her. And if you're raised by Saw Gerrera, you're probably going to be a pretty strong person. There are times in this movie where Cassian, I don't want to say he wants to give up, but he looks all bleak, and she's the one who sort of picks him up by the collar at times. And I think, again, that's part of probably being raised by Saw. And when you know the bigger story about Saw Gerrera, he and his sister were both sort of freedom fighters, and she dies. And he is at a loss because this was, he and his sister were very, very close. And I wonder, we don't ever see this, but I just wonder if he saw Jyn more as a sister as he helped raise her rather than a child or somebody else's child. But Amazing character, amazing character. How about, oh man,
Mhm.
I mean, we can't get away from this topic without, probably the first person you would think of when you think of Star Wars women, and that's got to be Leia Organa, Princess Leia, General Organa eventually, right? I mean, she goes through the
Mhm.
whole gamut from being born in the prequel trilogy. We see her for a few moments at the very end of Revenge of the Sith. We see her a little bit in Rogue One, just for a couple of seconds in Rogue One, and then obviously the original trilogy. She's huge as the princess character, and then in the sequels, she's now the general, where she has taken full command of all of this. And so we see, Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? She's a child. What about in Obi-Wan
Mhm.
Kenobi? Amazing.
So adorable.
Obviously, all of that, except for the childhood and the baby one, is being played by Carrie Fisher, a legend who we lost recently. But the child who plays her in Obi-Wan Kenobi is just awesome. How did they find an actress, child actress, is so who looks like she could grow up to look like Carrie Fisher? How did they find somebody who
Mhm.
can act at that age so much like Carrie Fisher or Leia must have acted as a child? Like, just the casting win for the ages, in my opinion. But, we see her in the original trilogy, and we're talking about the late 70s, we're talking about the early 80s. And I've said this a lot of times. She was a strong character in those trilogies. Now, not by today's standards, but by the 70s and 80s, no, it does not pass the Bechdel test. But other than Ripley from Aliens, I cannot think of a stronger female science fiction character besides Princess Leia. I mean, she's not afraid to grab the gun from Han. She's not afraid to kiss Luke in front of Han. Like, she's got all the things. She's got the
Mhm.
moxie. She's got the strength. Of course, later we find out that she's Luke's sister. Later we find out that she can also be strong in the Force and has her own lightsaber, right? Like, she a friend of Chewie, but she's not afraid to stand up to Chewie. Get this walking carpet out of my way. Like,
Mhm.
all of the moxie and all of the strength wrapped up in one Leia package.
And she was a unique role model for those of us growing up in the 80s, right? For us girls who grew up in the 80s, because you really did not see a lot of characters like her at that point. So although she wasn't huge in, there weren't a lot of other women. Yeah, Leia was a key character. She had the action figure, she had the she was on her own lunch boxes and stuff like that. So those of us who were young in the 80s could also latch onto her, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, she was one of the big three, right? Luke, Leia, and Han. I
Mhm.
mean, that was it for the original trilogy. I mean, at least on the good guy side, we do have to just probably mention that, yes, she was a strong character, but there was in that original trilogy objectification of women in a negative way, right? I mean, they put her in that
Mhm.
gold medal bikini, which,
Ugh.
yeah, I mean, it was a choice. There are lots of stories. I don't think we've ever talked about on this podcast, but lots of stories in the first movie where, you know, George Lucas would not let her wear appropriate undergarments, and she wanted to she wanted to wear that to be supported,
Mhm.
so to speak. And famously, his line, I don't know if he actually said it, but the myth is that he said it, is that there's no underwear in space. So he would not let her wear, so yeah, it was not all good for her. I mean, it was the 70s and the early 80s. I'm not saying it's okay, but it did happen. And we
Mhm.
have, should recognize it at least a little bit. So God bless her for
And
going through that in the first movie and then sticking with it. Yes, she was under contract, but she could have broken that contract for the second and third movie. She stayed with it for whatever reason, we'll never know.
and seeing her as General Organa sort of healed something about that for some of us, right? For me, watching her in the sequels be, General Organa, respected, not necessarily the tiniest, frailest woman in the world at that point, but also like wearing a jacket that makes her look cool and, just just kind of being what we maybe needed her to be, but the 70s could not let her be.
Well, in the way all of the characters in the sequel trilogy look up to her, and they all recognize her as the general, which is which is really cool, I think too.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, again, in the sequel trilogy here, she is a mom, right? Her and Han have a child. They don't end up together, which I thought for sure they were going to end up together at the end of the movies. But
Yeah.
obviously they didn't. But Ben Solo is their child. So Leia is a mom, little mom. Let's move on. Probably a character that nobody knows anything about unless you're pretty deep into the lore and pretty deep into the books. But a character that I think is really interesting, and that is Mara Jade. Or, and we'll talk about this in a moment, Mara Jade Skywalker. Now, she is only in the books, and this is a bit controversial. We'll talk about that in a second, but she is a force sensitive human female character. She was raised as a servant to Emperor Palpatine. She's about Luke Skywalker's age. So she was growing up. We don't see her in the original trilogy, but she was there. She was Palpatine's servant, and then later she becomes his assassin. And so she is all in on the Empire. After the Emperor's death, that would be at the end of Return of the Jedi, she carries out her last command from Palpatine, and that command is to assassinate Luke Skywalker. And so she goes to do that. While she's doing that, she gains this tremendous respect for Luke, does not kill him. And this is sort of where the books that were written a long time ago diverge in storyline from the sequel trilogy that we get, and why there is so much controversy among hardcore novel fans about the sequel trilogy, because the stories do not line up in any way, shape, or form. So Mara Jade turns to the light side out of respect for Luke and seeing what he is going through, and she becomes trained as a Jedi. The two fall in love, Mara and Luke, and they get married. She becomes a Jedi Master, and they have a son together named Ben, which they named after, of course, Obi-Wan, right? Ben Kenobi from Luke's childhood. That was his childhood friend and his first mentor from way back at the beginning of A New Hope. And so she goes through this incredible storyline from dark side user and assassin to the Emperor, all the way full circle to Jedi Master and mother of Luke's child, or her and Luke's child, that they named Ben. And, that is sort of borrowed for the sequel trilogy, like the Ben part, right? Ben Solo instead of Ben Skywalker. And then it's Han and Leia's son, because they didn't want to include Jay. So that's where, you can see that there's a lot of controversy over the sequel storyline for that purpose, because all of these novels that we have that were written a long time ago that told the story post Return of the Jedi, there's a lot of conflict in canon at this point. I mean, the Thrawn books, right? This is a lot of this story is in the original mid 90s, 93 or whatever it was written as, Thrawn series. That's where we learn about Luke's evil clone and Thrawn, and none of that ends up in the sequel trilogy, which now, Star Wars revisionist history has gone back and said, well, it's because Thrawn was so far away and now he's back, and et cetera, and we get more of the TV series. But I think Mara Jade is a fantastic character. It's just a super fun twist to the story that not a lot of people know about, and you didn't either, and now you do.
I did not know about this, and I have read a lot of the books, primarily with you. We have talked before about how you and I read the books. We read the later Thrawn trilogy or series, and we are reading the High Republic novels. We have read dozens of books, but the original Thrawn series from whatever you said, 91 or 93 or whatever, I haven't read those yet. And so, yeah, I did not know this character when you added her to the list.
Yeah, they're a great series. So in typical Star Wars fashion, the newest or well, I should say it this way, the most recently written Thrawn books are the first books in the timeline, and the first books to be written in the 90s are the second. So, Star Wars does this whole prequel sequel thing, and the Thrawn books do that. So these books are the books when he's a part of the Empire. The more recently written trilogy is before that, when he's coming up through the Chiss ascendancy and, members of Chiss clans and becoming, a captain of a ship and etc. and all that. But we're not here to talk about Thrawn as much as I would love to. We're here to talk about the women of Star Wars. I love this next character. It's one of my favorite from the sequel trilogies, Maz Kanata.
Maz Kanata, love her. This is a woman, I guess, who is she's something like 1,000 years old. I think Han says she's been running this watering hole for 1,000 years or something like that. She is sort of friends with Han. It's this tension that lots of people have with Han. Like they're sort of annoyed by him, but also, he's great, so everybody loves him. But what I think I love most about her in the sequels, or in that sequel, is her kind of mentoring Rey in in a really in a way that is very needed for Rey. Rey has no Jedi master teaching her anything at this point, right? She's figuring out what the Force is. She has no idea, and she wanders into this basement at Maz Kanata's whatever that is, castle. And she stumbles across a chest that's calling to her, and she opens it and she finds a lightsaber and touches it, and she has these visions, and it's very cool, but she has no idea what to do with that. She's scared to death. She says, I'm never going near that. And Maz says, I'm no Jedi, but I know the Force. And she kind of tells Rey how to connect with the Force, how to close her eyes and quiet herself, and she just kind of gives her that mentoring for even just a couple minutes. She does appear later. I think she's on a hologram or something later too, but yeah, I like that, I don't know, sort of adopted mother or adopted mentor kind of thing, even if it's pretty brief.
Yeah, she appears later because she helps them locate the slicer that they need to get onto the ship,
Oh yeah.
etc. Yeah, I love Maz Kanata. She's a really fun character too, because she's like not exactly like other Star Wars characters. She reminds me, and we don't have her on the list, and we should have, but it just occurred to me. She reminds me of Sid from the Bad Batch, that like owns a bar,
Oh,
like knows
yeah,
more
yeah.
knows more than she should about everything, because when you own a bar, or whatever you want to call it, parlor or whatever you want to call it, you meet a lot of people and you talk to a lot of people, and it's common parlance in most movies that like the bartender or barkeeper gets everybody's stories, because you always want to talk to the talk to the person, etc. And so I don't know, the two, they kind of remind me of each other in that respect. I think Maz Kanata, because she's 1,000 years old, also like she has this incredibly deep wisdom about so many things. She looks right into Finn's eyes in 5 seconds and knows everything about him. Just, I see it in your eyes. Whatever she says, at that moment to Finn, and Finn's like, oh my God, who is this person, And yeah, she's super fun. Also, like when we see her later in the Hollow, she's fighting a battle. Like she's got a gun and she's going after it, right? So she's not afraid. She's not just wiping tables and pouring drinks. She can get out there and get dirty with the best of them too. So yeah, Maz is awesome. Speaking of M's, how about Mon Mothma?
And she is in a ton of Star Wars media, right? She's all over the place.
Yeah,
She's
she's
in the
in. Yep,
original
she's in.
series.
Yep.
She's in the new stuff in Andor, in Rogue One. She's animated in Clone Wars. I don't know if she's in Rebels. She's kind of everywhere. Even if she's just a background character, like during kind of scenes of the Senate, they always, even in the animated, they always kind of make sure she's drawn in
Yep.
on scenes like that. She's kind of always present in the Senate. And sometimes in some of the movies, she really is just kind of background. I think in the originals, she's not there a ton, but I think it's Return of the Jedi where she kind of has to give a little speech at the end, and it becomes, Leia really is the only main female character, but Mon Mothma has to give kind of a speech at the end to this group of rebels, and it becomes clear that she is in leadership of the rebels, which again, for the 80s, mind blowing, that she's kind of leading this charge. And then, in Andor, I think maybe it's season 2, you see her as like the mom. She's planning a wedding. She feels kind of trapped by all of the Empire stuff that's going on around her. Things are kind of closing in on her. And she's still just trying to like give her daughter advice as a mom on her wedding day, and also people are trying to like bribe her and con her and all these other things. So she feels like the real kind of quintessential, realistic, relatable mom, working mom. She also gives some great speeches. She says the death of truth is a victory for evil. That's kind of the scene where she's giving the speech in the Senate, and they're trying to shut down communications to cut her off, where she announces that Palpatine is terrible, right? And yeah, she's just kind of all of it. She's the working mom trying to have it all, who is struggling but also stays really strong for everybody else.
Yeah, all that's true. I will challenge you on the mom thing. I mean, she goes from this. We see her go from senator to like this double agent where she's a senator, and then on the backside, she's trying to put together the rebellion, or at least the beginning seeds of the
Mhm.
rebellion. And because that's such a struggle, especially financially, she does sort of sell her daughter into marriage, into a forced marriage, in order to
True.
bankroll the rebellion. Now, I know, and we could discuss, we won't, but we could discuss that in their Chandrillan culture, that is not uncommon. Arranged marriages are a thing. She's in an arranged marriage, and her and I forget her jerk husband's name, they don't love each other. In fact, it is
Mhm.
hinted or outright implied that one or both of them is openly cheating on the other one,
Mhm.
and it's just what they're doing because they're in a it's an arranged marriage, a marriage of financial and prestige convenience. And so that's what the Shindralans do. So could be argued that she isn't doing anything outside of what her culture it allows. But from our Earth human perspective, I don't know, man. That whole thing is super cringy to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, and then right before the wedding, she says to her daughter something along the lines of, "You don't have to do this. I can get you out of it." And then the
Mhm.
daughter's reply just breaks your heart because she says something like, "I can't get out of this. This is what you taught me to do," or something like "This is my
Mhm.
role. This is how you raised me. I have to do this." And it's like, oh my gosh, so heartbreaking. And anybody I think ever that's raised a child, although nothing obviously that extreme, hopefully not between the two of us
Let's hope
anyway,
not.
but I mean, you look at your child at 17 or 18 or 20 years old, and the things that you see in them that you wish weren't the things that you see in them are the things that you put there, right? Like, oh my gosh, you're
Mhm.
that way because I'm that way, or I forced you to be like, nobody's a perfect parent. We're all learning as we move along. I get that. Nobody's perfect, and I am definitely not perfect. But yeah, Mon Mothma, maybe not the best mom. Awesome character, mother of the rebellion in a lot of ways. But yeah, the whole selling your daughter for bankrolling the rebellion thing, man, I don't know about that.
That's fair. I do appreciate that she tries to like see the error of that and fix it,
Yeah,
right?
but
That's the
wait.
that's the mom part I'm talking about. It's not great. It's
Yeah,
not
but
I concede.
she tries to fix it after 2 days of partying when her daughter is wearing the wedding dress and the doors are about to open on the ceremony.
I totally concede that point. Yes, you
So,
win.
anyway, how about speaking of great moms?
Let's go to another great
How
mom.
about Mother Talzin? Oh, I one of my very, very favorite set of characters is the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
This is mostly from the Clone Wars. Although we do, Mother Talzin is not in it, but we do see talk of the Night Sisters and remnants of the Night Sisters in Ahsoka. So, but their leader in the Clone Wars era is Mother Talzin.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we love her so much is that she is mother to Maul, right? So, her, I think is there another child too? She has Savage and Maul, and maybe there are more, but the Night Sisters in general, right? She's the leader. She's like all around terrible and also cool, magical and all those things. The kind of the main mom scene we get from her is when Maul has been cut in half and has these creepy spider leg looking things that he has fashioned for himself so that he can continue to get around. His brother Savage finds him and brings him back to Mother Talzin, and she crafts new legs for him so that he can, return to some sense of normalcy. And we see that him dealing with those robotic legs kind of even into this current Maul series that we're seeing. He has some shorting out happening in his legs periodically. He has some pain going on. But this is her like sort of warped act of love or care for him, but it's also dark and creepy that it's hard to make it about being a mom. But she's intense, and her leadership of the Night Sisters is intense and impressive, and they're also just bad that it's kind of great.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, and the mother is more of an honorary title, like she's queen of the witches of Dathomir, also referred to as the Night Sisters. And Dathomir is a pretty interesting planet, and there are some episodes of the Clone Wars animated that goes into this, so we kind of learn about all this. But so Dathomir is a planet that has basically two main groups of people. There's the Night Sisters, and that's a clan of all female witches. And on the other side of the planet, there are these colonies of the men, the Zabrak, which is where Maul and Savage and all of those come from. And they got the horns and so forth. Until the Night Sisters intervene, the Zabrak men are very weak, very meager. There's no muscle structure. They are very, very weak characters. Dathomir, the planet, is a matriarchal society. The women rule the planet. And by that, Mother Talzin ruling the witches, she's basically the ruler of this planet. We get Maul and other strong Zabraki men through this magical process that basically when the witch women need a strong man, they go get one and bring a weak one over, and they magic him into being strong. And because they have done that, they are now basically his master. So it's not unlike maybe a slave master kind of, Maul is subservient throughout the series to Mother Talzin and the Night Sisters. He becomes, Maul, and then gets cut in half. He does come back with the legs, and she fixes him up. Like, he comes back and refers to her as Mother Talzin or Mother. He kind of sees it as a mother-son, a little bit of a mother-son relationship. So, yeah, really interesting dynamic there. Their magic is so cool. The music and sound effects in those scenes are always awesome. The visuals always awesome. Lots of dark reds and burgundies and greens and just really stunningly visual planet. And then the whole magic thing. Maul returns after the Night Sisters have been wiped out and goes through another magic process in that like well in the cave. That's really, really cool. Just lots of really great scenes with Mother Talzin and the Night Sisters. And then again in the Ahsoka series, we see them interacting with Thrawn. So we kind of get all of it comes full circle in there. All right, how about Padme? We see one version of Padme, I'll put it that way, in the prequel movies, played by Natalie Portman. And then we see, I think, a different version of Padme in the animated series.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about Padme. Those prequels are not my favorite version of Padme. I don't love that. So, her being a teen with little Anakin and then their whole romance thing is is still a little odd to me. But much, you pushed back on me on that and said, "Hey, but without her, we don't get like the rest of Star Wars. So we need Padme." And that I guess she's a complicated character. We get her as young and she's influential but still sort of finding herself. It's not until later that we get her as a much stronger character. I think she's stronger in the Clone Wars, but she has to hold her own in the movies too. One of my favorite lines is when she's sitting in the Senate and she says, "So this is how liberty dies," with thunderous applause, as they all cheer on Palpatine, and she just kind of knows what's coming, and she can sense the the evil in him and recognizes him for who he is, but nobody's listening to her, and nobody gets that making him emperor is gonna end badly.
Yeah, I mean,
So I appreciate that in her.
not only is that her best line, it is also the best line in that movie of anyone,
Mhm.
and maybe the best line in the entire prequels, which there's not a lot of great lines in the prequels because the dialogue is pretty bad. But yeah, I think, she is a complicated character, and we do see two views of her. She is a much stronger character in the animated version, and I think that's on purpose. And yeah, without her and Anakin's whole thing, we don't get Luke and Leia, and then we don't have, the redemption of Vader, and I mean, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have Star Wars if they don't. It was one of the problems of the prequels, right? We have to get these two together because we know they are
Yeah.
together, and Vader has to be, or Luke and Leia have to be born. So I mean, you have to put them together. I think when
And
my favorite things in the Clone Wars with her is when she's not with Anakin. Like she's on her own doing Senate things. And you see
Mhm.
all of the other senators respecting her point of view. I mean, Bale and others several times say, "You have to give this speech. The people respect you. You have to say this in the Senate." Like, she's not just a senator, she is like one of the main senators. And I think that's because when she was raised on Naboo, she was raised for this. She was raised for politics. And there is another conversation on Naboo in the movies where, Anakin is essentially, he doesn't know he is, but he's essentially arguing for fascism. She is like, "No, that's not how democracy works." Like, he goes, "Well, they should be made to agree." Well, that's not how this works, Anakin, because she was raised to be a political leader. He was not. He was raised to be a pod racer, I guess. I don't, whatever he was raised to be. But I mean, they lived very, 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 very different childhoods. And now they're both in this political climate as late teens, or adults, or however you want to look at it. And she comes at it from one perspective, and he comes at it from another perspective. And I just think her as a leader of the Senate is really, really interesting in the animated series, is a much better view of it.
Yeah, that whole scene happens while they're like flirting and playing in a field and
Yeah, I
has
mean,
all kinds of other,
yeah, yeah. I was only going to talk about the
no
good part of that
negativity.
scene, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've chronicled it on the podcast. Go back and
Yep.
listen to it. It's fine. How
Yep.
about enough with the prequel era? We haven't gotten much to the sequels. How about Rey?
Yeah. You know, the sequels are fine, and we need Rey, and I'm glad that she is as complicated and wrestling with things as she is. I have a love-hate relationship with the way that her character plays out. There are some good scenes with her understanding the Force, her learning the Force, her those are the things I like in those movies for Rey. The thing that I don't love is that so much of it hinges on Kylo, and I get that, like, it had to be that way, but yeah, their connection is so good, but also is, like, just so borders on odd love story. I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love the scene where she tells him to put on a shirt. It's kind of funny, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think the really cool thing about her is her extreme independence because of her childhood I mean, she was alone on this planet and had to fend for herself. And now the interesting arc about her is she has to figure out how to trust Finn, trust Poe, trust, Han for a while still maintaining her independence and realizing that she can't do it alone. She does need Chewie. She does need Luke and all of these sorts of things. And, I think some of her best scenes are the ones isolated on the island with Luke, where she's trying to train herself and she's trying to convince him to come back and trying to figure all of the how do all these pieces fit together for her and her part of the story as she comes of age and she's being asked to do things that she wasn't really trained to do. She is strong in the Force. There are also some weird scenes on that island, like when she goes into the cave, into the dark cave, and the mirror snap thing is kind of awkward for me. But she gets the great story at the end where she is the next Jedi. She's not, and she says, I'm, Rey Skywalker. That's kind of cool, right? Even though she's not a Skywalker, she's a Palpatine, but she stays to the light. So yeah, good for her.
Yeah, and I do like her character development in that, she's so focused on getting back to her home place to look for her family and find them. And Maz Kanata tells her, look in your heart, that what you need to go for is not what's behind you, but what's in front of you, right? That nobody's waiting for you there. You need to move forward. And she really does kind of embrace that. So that's great.
Well, yeah, and go back for what? You were miserable there. You were scrounging for
Hmm.
scraps. But we always want to go home, whether we remember the good things about the past, not necessarily the bad things. And that's probably one of those moments for her. How about Sabine Wren? Sabine is a huge part of the main Ghost crew in Rebels. She is a Mandalorian by birth. She has some of the armor, although it is a little bit non-traditional because she's also an artist, so she's painted it. She paints a lot. She always is spray painting everything. She is also a bomb expert. She loves blowing things up, so there's that. And she is a main part of the Ahsoka series because she's looking for her brother Ezra, and that she loses at the very end of Rebels. And now there's all this time has passed and she's trying to figure out, oh man, she's also Force sensitive, which we did not know in Rebels. But when you go back and watch Rebels, oh boy, it's kind of there. There's a couple of storylines in Rebels also where she reconnects a little bit with her Mandalorian culture. She goes and visits her real mother, and we see all of the warring clans of Mandalore and how that's all playing out and where are loyalties. She stays for a while, then she comes back to the Ghost crew, and she goes through a lot of different ups and downs. I think one of my favorite things also is early on in Rebels when they find Ezra and he becomes a part of the crew. She's a little bit older than him, and he obviously, like, she's a good looking girl and he knows it and he kind of flirts with her a little bit. And I just absolutely love that they never go there. They keep it brother
Hmm.
sister. It's never a thing. Like, he flirts with her a little bit, but that ends pretty quick and they're clearly a brother sister. They never make it into a romance, which I so appreciate and respect that they never went there. And then when you see they find her, Ezra in the Ahsoka series, like, it is brother sister, right? They are still brother sister, and he's like, "Whoa, you can use a lightsaber? Like, where did that come from?" And she's just a really, really deep character because she has the Mandalorian things, she has the rebellion aspect, she's a painter and an artist, and she loves to blow things up. She's just so many things in all of those series.
Yeah, and she's snarky, which,
Mm-hmm.
around here, you and me and Sid love some good snark. So she has that. She's got little quips and comebacks that are just sarcastic enough to be lovable, and tough, but also she has that big sister quality, and that's great. I do like her. I think maybe more in Rebels. I don't know why, maybe just because I watched that first. But She's a great example of a character that if you didn't watch any animated and you only started watching Ahsoka and you had no background in Rebels, I think you would lose something. I don't know. I watched Rebels before that, but she's one of those ways in which some of the live action stuff that is newer is enhanced when you have already watched Rebels, Clone Wars. We've talked about this multiple times, but things in Mandalorian, things in Ahsoka that you get so much more appreciation for and background of when you have already watched the animated stuff.
I think that's true. I think the Ahsoka series in general, I think that's true. I think there's so much background. I don't know that you'd be lost, but man, there's a lot you're going to be missing. And even
Yeah.
Clone Wars, like if you don't know who Professor Yuang is, then like you don't know why he's helping Sabine construct her
Mhm.
lightsaber. Like, why is this robot doing that? Well, because for 1,000 years he
Well,
was the professor on the ship that helped the younglings construct their first lightsabers, and he has this memory bank of every single lightsaber of every single Jedi in the history of Jedi. You're right, like you don't know that
mhm.
just from live action. Yeah, I think Sabine is just a fantastic character, and I think the level of depth when she goes to Mandalore for a while and you see her connection there is just wildly, wildly very cool. Speaking of Mandalores, how about Satine Kryze? This is the sister of Bo-Katan Kryze. Mentioned her a little bit earlier. She is the leader of Mandalore during the Clone Wars era. She is a pacifist. She has led Mandalore from the warrior ways into, at that time, the present Mandalore view, which is for peace. She exiled the Death Watch, as we come to have them be known, to the moon of Concordia. The warriors, she banished the warriors from the planet, and just a really strong, sure of herself leader. She knows who she is, she knows what she believes, and she's not going to bend, like no matter what. Very strong in her beliefs. A really interesting twist to the character also, or at least to the Jedi part of the twist, is her and Obi-Wan they were lovers, or at least in love. And we see that, Obi-Wan admits it at one point in one of the season 2 or late season 1 arcs, because basically Anakin just badgers him until he admits it, right? Like he just keeps saying, "Oh, so you care for her, huh? Oh, so there's some history there, huh?" Like needle, 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 until Obi-Wan finally says, "Okay, fine, this is what happened." And so there is that. There is a little romantic backstory to her, but I think the main title of her is pacifist leader of Mandalore.
And if I'm wrong in this, we can cut it out, but she and Bo-Katan have like this tension of who is going to be the leader, right? And like they're sisters, but they need to figure out who is going to kind of lead the Mandalorian people. You know, Bo-Katan assumes she's going to get the Darksaber and lead everybody, and Satine does not think that fighting their way back to leadership is the way to go.
Yeah, there's a clash of ideals there, because Satine is a pacifist and Bo-Katan is not. She's a warrior,
Mhm.
and so it's a deep seated belief in what is best for Mandalore. And at least at the time of the Clone War era, Satine is the leader, and so she gets to choose, and it doesn't matter that Bo-Katan believes otherwise.
Mhm.
Later, when we see the Mandalorian series, Satine is gone, and so Bo-Katan can get the Darksaber and do as she sees. That's also, a ton of time and a lot of things have passed between those two events. We had the entire siege of Mandalore. Mandalore basically gets blown up and destroyed. We hear about that in the Mando series. He needs to, in order to cleanse himself, he needs to go and bathe in the waters of the mines of Mandalore, I think is the exact phrase, or something like that. It's like this
Mhm.
cleansing, natural undersea or underland seas. And he says the mines were destroyed in the Great Siege. So there's definitely, there's a lot of time. Not only a lot of time has passed, but a lot of things have changed between those two events. But yeah, they definitely did not see eye to eye, ideally or politically. Our last character, I think, unless one comes up while we're doing this, is Vice Admiral Holdo. And I had totally forgotten her on this list. You said right before we started, what about the lady with the purple hair? And I was like, yes. So she is a leader of the good guys and sort of second in command to Leia. And when Leia is hurt in battle, Vice Admiral Hodo kind of becomes the leader. She's in charge, and her and Poe have a lot of exchanges, etc. And it's really important to note that you find out through the course of the movie that she was probably closer to Leia than anybody knew, because she has information about Leia's plans that nobody else had. Not the rest of the leadership, not Poe, who he's not a leader, he's just a pilot. I mean, he's the best pilot at the time, and he's, a hothead or whatever, but she continues to kind of put him in his place. She even called him like flyboy or something like that. There's some
Mhm.
derogatory term that she uses. And of course, probably most famously, at least beyond her in the history of the Republic, is what is called the Holdo maneuver. And this is in the movies where she turns the ship around, goes to light speed through Snoke's ship, essentially saving what was left of the rebellion, sacrificing herself for the rebellion, and that became known as the Holdo maneuver, which, it is self-sacrificial. You are dead when you do it, so probably not the best idea, but at that moment it was the only thing they had to do, and she did it. She did what needed to be done.
Yeah, she has all this tension because I think partly because she comes out as a leader while Leia is injured, but not everybody trusts her leadership, right? There is this distinct question of whether she is really as knowledgeable and whatever. There's kind of this doubt of who she is and why are you here and why are you suddenly leading us that initially surfaces. So everybody, at least the young pilots don't think that she has the right to have that much authority in the decision making in this significant of a situation. And she kind of has to prove herself, and they all realize, some of them don't realize they're wrong about her until she sacrifices herself at the end. And I mean, the music and the pull out on that scene of, the larger space view of things. It's a beautiful scene meant to be beautiful because of her sacrifice. Like it, as so many other things. Like the music is part of it, the scenery is part of it. And so yeah, her sacrifice at the end is really really great.
Well, when she pulls off the maneuver, the entire soundscape just goes completely silent for a moment.
Silent.
And I remember, I don't know if it was actually in the theaters or if it was just widely publicized before the premiere of the movie, was, hey, by the way, there is one moment here where everything goes completely silent. The movie is not broken. It's okay. How often is a movie completely silent and at a pivotal moment, like in the middle of a war or a battle? And they didn't want everybody freaking out that, like, oh, the war's, the movie's broken or the sound's broken. Like, hey, this is okay. It's going to go silent for a second, and that's okay. I wonder if people second guessing her leadership had something to do with Leia being such a strong leader at that time. I mean, everybody recognized the leadership, brilliance, and intelligence, and all of the things that Leia was. And because you have like Leia as one, and then Vice Admiral Hodo, sure, she's second in charge, but like it's a pretty distant second from the outside perspective. And so you would naturally kind of go, okay, but what are we going to do without Leia? So it leaves a huge gap in the leadership because she was such a strong general type figure.
And I don't think we see their friendship in a really obvious way leading up to that. It would have been a very different feel if throughout that movie or throughout that set of things, like as we got to know adult General Leia, if Vice Admiral Holdo was like always by her side and they were clearly best friends, it would have been a very different thing than like, oh, you do have all of this information, but why would we have known that? Like she was this, you know, just it doesn't seem like they are as close until it becomes obvious just how close they were.
which makes that either brilliant movie making or terrible movie making.
Exactly.
Because either you pre-planned it or you just suck at making movies. And we're not going to debate that here today, because today we are just here to celebrate the women of Star Wars. And I did think of one that we did not discuss. I do not remember her name, although it'll come to me when we talk. The love interest of Andor in the Andor series that ends up bearing his child by the end. What's her name?
Bix Colleen.
Bix. Yeah, Bix. You know, she's a pretty cool character too. She's like, she's heavy into the rebellion. And then, of course, she goes through that awful interrogation process that like scars her PSD forever. She never really fully recovers. I do appreciate that they stick with that storyline to the end. They don't just go, oh yeah, by the way, she had PTSD and then forget about it. Like, she struggles with that for the remainder of her time in the series. The flash forward at the very end where she's a mom now, maybe they kind of say, but everything's okay. Maybe there's a little nod to like, she recovered. Maybe she got some therapy or something and turned out okay. I don't know. I mean, but she went through a lot. That interrogation on Ferrix where the doctor, what's his name? Just awful. Yeah, we forgot about Bix. Sorry, Bix. And I'm sure there are a lot of other ones we could have mentioned, and hopefully none of the very big ones. Comment below if we missed somebody that you think we should have talked about, and we will apologize on our next episode. Cathy, thanks for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day. And I know Mother's Day was yesterday, but today, it's not yesterday. As of today, it is this weekend. So happy Mother's Day this weekend to you.
Thanks, Bob. Tell Dawn happy Mother's Day from me.
Oh, I should get her something, shouldn't I?
You really should, man. Tell Harrison, get her something. I'll text Harrison. Tell him. I'll remind him.
We already did it. It's covered. It's good.
Okay. Oh, good. Great.
We'll see you next time.
Good job. Hey, send Mom a card. Don't forget.
Got it.
All right.
Hey, Matt, happy birthday.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Good. It's been a good birthday.
Good birthday?
All right. It was a busy birthday.
No significant storms on your birthday, though.
No, but that's okay.
Not today's birthday.
It's okay.
We're talking Mother's Day today. Actually, yesterday. From our recording vantage point, we haven't hit Mother's Day yet, but from the posting standpoint, it was yesterday. And you had this idea a while ago that when we get to May, and we need to talk about this particular drink in May for Mother's Day. So tell us a little bit about what we are tasting here today. It's a little way different for us, technically.
It is way different for us. And it's the only one in this genre, we'll say genre,
Sure.
of whiskey that I've really kind of gotten into. We are into Scottish whiskeys now. Okay, so we're not in bourbons, we're in Scotch. Both are whiskeys.
Gotcha.
But they're not the same.
And it's not bourbon.
And it's not bourbon.
Gotcha.
And bourbon is not Scotch.
Right.
Okay, so today what we have is it's a Scottish whiskey. It's called Sia.
S-I-A.
S-I-A. And it is actually, it's relatively new, very affordable. I think when I picked this bottle up, I had to go to Columbus to pick it up. This isn't one that, now I'm not saying that, Columbus is, the epicenter of Scottish whiskey purchasing.
Well, sure.
But this isn't something that we're going to go to Meyer and pick up. Mm-hmm. So it made me feel kind of good, because this one I found on a YouTube channel that they had talked about it and reviewed it. What stood out to me though is the distiller that created this is the first female and Hispanic individual to develop a whiskey. That was kind of cool for me. I like, because I know how when you would pick band repertoire, you would try to find underrepresented composers.
Absolutely.
And really try to promote them. And I thought the same thing. And when I looked through her explanation for this specific blend, it was mostly because she just wanted something that a common person could pick up a bottle of Scotch for a reasonable price and drink something that was very palatable. Mm-hmm. And I think this was around the $20 to $25 mark for this bottle. And I think it's really good for that price point.
On the nose, I don't really get a lot.
No.
Of a scent.
No.
The taste hits me as very different than bourbon. There are similarities, but it's definitely more sweet. Mm-hmm. Is that?
So when we're not going to dive in completely into what makes Scotch,
Right.
but some of the key differences is, we think a lot about how bourbon is distilled in Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to Scotch, there are 5 main regions that different whiskeys are blended from. And based on those regions, that's what gives it the flavor profile. Mm-hmm. So real quick, the 5 regions are the Speyside, which is more of a fruity, sweet palate. You have the Islay, which is not the naming rights of Islay. But that's sort of more of a smoky flavor that they get. And then we have the Highlands, which there's a lot of variation when it comes to the Highlands. It's a rich, spicy, malty sort of flavor. The Lowlands are more of a floral and grassy type of palate. And then we have Campbelltown, that's more of a complex flavoring with a little bit more oil and salty and all of that kind of stuff.
What is this?
So it's a blend of Speyside, Highland, and Islay malt and grain whiskeys. So
the sweetness is on the back end.
yeah.
I mean, this is delightful. This is more complex, I think, than most bourbons.
It is.
From a layering standpoint. So, what is the how long is it aged or distilled?
So typically,
I mean, most Scotch in general. Scotches in general.
Sure. Obviously, Scotch is made in Scotland, and it's aged for at least 3 years in oak barrels, and it's really distilled from water, malted barley, and may include some other grains here and there, but those are the main components, and it has to be bottled at a minimum of 40% ABV.
Okay.
So those are really the key components of what makes a Scotch a Scotch.
Lots of Scotch barrels use former bourbon barrels.
Yes.
Right? Bourbon has to be distilled in a brand new barrel. But my understanding is once they take the bourbon out of the barrel, they ship them to Scotland and use them for Scotch.
Right.
Right.
And they'll even use those barrels in wineries. Wineries will oftentimes purchase used bourbon barrels.
Or even you see Kentucky bourbon beer where they have aged the beer in, so it gets that bourbon effect from the wood.
Not that we're advertising here.
Bourbon ale.
Have you ever had the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale at Beer Barrel? Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Yeah. I don't remember the last time I had a Scotch, quite frankly.
It's definitely way more complex because once you even get past the 5 regions, then you get into a single malt or blended. Single malt is going to be way more complex.
Yeah.
Because of the way the process goes to get that. But then
I could get into this.
But then when you have the blend, that's when they're looking for the balance, much like this.
There's also much less spice. Mm-hmm. Is that a Scotch thing or is that a this Scotch thing?
I would say that would be a blended Scotch thing. The single malts have a personality. Mm-hmm. Glenlivet is probably one of the more popular single malts. Johnny Walker, I think everybody's heard of Johnny Walker.
Yeah,
that's a blended.
It's like the maker's mark of Scotch.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's actually Jameson has a black barrel bottle that to me tastes like banana bread, and it is fantastic.
I like banana bread.
It's very good.
Yeah, back to the Sia. This is delightful. I don't know why I've always avoided Scotch. It always just, I don't know why. There's no reason. It's not a thing, I don't know. It's just, I think Scotch has this very highbrow, snooty, at least that's my perception, like in movies where they're in the CEO's office of the Fortune 10,000 company, like they're always drinking scotch, or that's what the hoity-toity people in the movies always drink at bars. Oh, give me a scotch. I guess I just think of it more highbrow than bourbon is sort of like every man's whiskey, sort of.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think, I was just going to say something similar. Like scotch to me is way more sophisticated. And bourbon is more like, we're the patriots of old times and we're drinking, daddy's whiskey.
But I would, at least this, very small sample size, very one data point for my next very broad general statement. For people who don't like the burn of bourbon, this is a great place to go because there is you're drinking alcohol. I mean, it's there. But there's no yikes here.
No.
To me.
No, it's very good. It's very smooth. It definitely gets across the point that she was trying to make with this blend of, it's something that's approachable by anybody.
Yeah. Oh, definitely approachable. I would say this would be a good entry into bourbon, actually, because it has many of the same qualities of bourbon, but much more palatable than some bourbons that you would maybe try to start with. So, yeah, thanks for sharing this with us today. This is great. So it is something neat, but it's just not bourbon.
No.
So thanks for joining us with us today. And again, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. See ya. Hopefully you don't forget the moms in your life.
No, breathe. Find your happy place.
I am an alumni. No, you are not. Not unless you are from the Star Trek universe and you are Borg, in which case you can say I am an alumni. But you wouldn't say that if you were Borg. Anyway, this is not a Star Trek podcast. Alumni is from Latin. Now, Latin has very specific rules for masculine and feminine, as well as singular and plural. Very complicated language. The word alumni, though, is plural. We are alumni. It's like cactus and cacti. By the way, did you know the word timpani is plural? You should not say one timpani. It's a set. One drum from the timpani set is a timpano. So anyway, alumni is plural. We are alumni. Alumnus is the singular. I am an alumnus. So it's not I am an alumni. That's like saying I am a group. You say I am an alumnus. ALUMNUS. Now, technically, alumnus is singular, but it's also masculine. So if you identify as female, it is incorrect to say I am an alumnus. You should say I am an alumna. ALUMNA. That is the singular feminine form of the word. And if there are more than one of you and you all identify as female, you are alumnae. ALUMNAE. We are alumnae. That's saying we, this group of women, are an alumnae. Combined groups of females and males should always use masculine forms. So we, men and women together, or men alone, are alumni. Granted, as Americans, we do not typically recognize masculine and feminine forms of specific words, so you can skip the alumna, alumnae part, but look, plural, yeah, you should probably know about that. If you're going to claim to be a graduate and thereby tout your educational status, you should probably sound educated and actually use the correct form of the word. So, repeat after me. I am an alumnus. Go ahead and say it. I am an alumnus. Very good. We are alumni. Go ahead and say it. We are alumni. Yeah, very good. Okay. Think of it like cactus and cacti. One plant is a cactus. Many of them are cacti. Look, grammar counts, people. If you're going to claim to be educated, then you should at least sound like it. Pretend for me, okay? Alumni, alumnus, it matters. I feel better. You feel better? Do we feel better? Homework for the week. We are in week 3 of our summer beach read suggestions. I'm going sci-fi this week. Dawn, what do you got?
I decided to go sci-fi as well, since you were. Sci-fi is not my go-to, but I either hate it or I love it. I feel like there's not much in between. So here are 2 sci-fi books I loved, and that I think a typically not sci-fi fan could also love and enjoy. Quick, they're going to suck you in kind of reads. So the first one is Dark Matter by Crouch. It is very sci-fi. There's a lot of math and a lot of science, but tons of relationships, and the dialogue is fantastic. I feel like that's what's often missing in a sci-fi novel is good conversation. It was just a real good one. I've read several by Crouch that are all quick, suck you in, very interesting kind of reads. They're sci-fi, a little thriller on the edge. And then my other one is super popular right now is Project Hail Mary. If you saw the movie, go back and read the book. And if you do audiobooks, this one's for you, because now that the movie's out, I don't think this is a spoiler, but Rocky speaks in musical tones. And so when I read the book in print, I was imagining that. And then in the audible version, you get to hear Rocky's musical tones. And it's just a really good story.
How similar is the musical tone from the audiobook similar to the movie?
Similar to the beginning of the movie when they're still giving you the musical tones.
Oh, right. They
kind of phase that out.
Right.
But through the book, it's always there in the background.
Yeah, I echo both of those. In fact, I just read Dark Matter like 3 days ago. I read it in like 2 straight days. It was brilliant. It is pretty heavy sci-fi, a little light on the math. It is like multiverse tangential. I will say it doesn't get too deep into the multiverse. It's more like the effects of what might happen in one portrait of the multiverse. But yeah, very life heavy too. It's the relationships and the effect of it's very great book. Super highly recommended. I'm going to go with 2. One that I absolutely hated, but other people might like. This is called Version Control. It's by Dexter Palmer. I thought this was going to be a sci-fi book, and it is sci-fi-ish because it's got time travel involved and the butterfly effect, sort of like I go back in time, I change something, then what happens when I move forward. But 90% of this book is the one person in the relationship trying to go backwards in time purely to fix their marriage. And then she comes forward, and what happens, and goes back and goes forward, continually trying to not a great book. So I'm anti-recommending that one. The second one, absolutely starter villain, and I know you read this one too and really liked it. It's a pretty recent book, I think 2023, by John Scalzi. By the way, any John Scalzi, highly recommended. Starter villain, though, is super fun. It is about the main character whose rich uncle dies and leaves him the business that he had built. And what you quickly find out is that the business is he's a supervillain. And so he inherits a supervillain business, and there's talking cats and all sorts of, it just gets absolutely fantastic. And while I don't know that I've read a book in the last probably 10 years that has made me absolutely just chuckle as many times with the interactions of all of the different things.
Dolphins who like the F word, right? You can't.
Dolphins who like, yeah, there is some language.
Yeah, there's a little language, but hilarious.
So there's our sci-fi 3 recommendations and 1 not so much, but maybe you'll like it. I didn't care for it all that much. So we'll see you next week. Okay, that's the show. Make sure you leave a rating, drop a comment, or send a message on the app of your choice. You can text the show with the link at the bottom of the description. You can check out our merch store at themarchingarts.com/RHS and our YouTube channel at Robert H. Sloan RHS Music. We hope you'll join us next week. And yes, I know I have said this before multiple times for Clone Wars Season 2, Episodes 20, 21, and 22. And why are you counting days? Thanks for joining me today. The theme music is Superfly, written by me, copyright RHS Music. The show logo is designed by John Suh, and our producer is my sister, Cathy. I hope you'll join us next time for more reflections and rantings on symbols and cynicism.